What exactly does it take to position yourself for greatness? There are many persons that wants to come into financial independence. There are many persons that wants to self-actualize. What exactly is the pathway to come into greatness? I'm going to share some of my thoughts with you. One, it is important to take ownership of your life. Because if you're not taking ownership of your life, there's no way in which you can come to that point of self mastery. And you need to put yourself in that position of strength where you can master who you are in order to position yourself for greatness. Today, we are going to examine these talking points. And I have a team of colleagues that will support me as we do a deep dive into what it takes for you to master who you are. So I want to first of all invite Shabani Sinarain. In the event that you're seeing Shabani Sinarain for the first time, hi Shabani, how are you?
Not bad at all.
Shab- Great to have you here. Shabani is a lecturer. She is a serial entrepreneur and she's a project management practitioner. Welcome. I also want to invite Clement Frank. And in the event that you're wondering who is Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession. He's a leader, and he's soon to release his new book on leadership and management. We also have Peter Guscott, and he's the brain behind Legacy Chronicle Human Growth Program. And he is a theologist by profession, and a theology that really put tremendous emphasis into helping people to understand the importance of master planning. You can have your master plan for life, business, and he will help us to understand that. So I want to welcome each and every one of you to today's program. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. All right. Today we are discussing self ownership. Do we really own ourselves? Do you really own yourself? We are also discussing self mastery and how you can position yourself. How can you take practical steps to position yourself
You got carried away
for success?
at a cliff show.
Now, I'm going to share a little bit with you my observation of life, my analysis of life. And what I've seen is that many persons do not own their own thoughts. And why do I say this? Very often, you might be part of an institution and you have to follow suit with the status quo. Any thought that deviates from the status quo, you becomes a threat. Is that mastering who you are, or is that compliant? Because in cases you comply, even when you don't agree with the status quo, it's like someone say, I don't like Shivani, and because someone who is an influencer say, I don't like Shivani, the entire institution comes against Shivani. No one is brave enough, masterful enough to say, that's a personal issue with you and Shivani. The collective comes against Shivani. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But then I'm going to deviate all the way into finance. Because what we are seeing also is that many persons you're manipulated from self actualization because of money. We are also seeing many persons do not even own themselves. There are many examples of that, and I would not necessarily go into it today because many persons you are only doing what the puppet master asks you to do. You're doing what the puppet master commands you to do. But when it comes to self ownership and self mastery and positioning yourself for success, it's not necessarily about what the puppet master says. It's about you taking ownership and you taking control and you taking mastery over your life to position yourself for greatness. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to say because we are seeing with the world, the realities in the world, and as humanitarian, it's not enough to see the problems and dwell on the problems without positioning yourself as a thought leader, and that's to find solutions to the problem. And one of the solutions that I want to table today is a concept that we call Pathway 5. Pathway 5 may not necessarily help you to become a master of yourself, but guess what? It's going to position you to build wealth for yourself. And because you are building wealth for yourself, it's going to help you to be a little bit more in control. Perhaps Master Frank will help you to understand the leadership skills to really master who you are. Perhaps Peter Scott, in his master plan, will help you to understand the tools to master yourself. So, what I want to do, I want to walk you through a little bit of what Pathway 5 is going to help you to accomplish. Now, Pathway 5 is a unique program that we are now introducing into the Science of Success University. And what Pathway 5 does, it helps you to understand the science, the theory, and practice of wealth creation. So what we're doing here, we're taking the guesswork out of wealth creation. We're taking the guesswork out of business success. We're taking the guesswork out of personal success because we are helping you now to understand a pathway to success where you're using science, you're using the theory, and you're using the practice to accomplish it. Now, there are 5 important pathways that you will learn here. Pathway 1 is where we talk about the science, theory, and practice of preparation. You want to be successful in business or in life. You want to position yourself to build wealth. Do you understand what it takes to be prepared? The more prepared you are for wealth creation, is going to set you up to be independent. It's going to set you up to come one step closer to mastering yourself. Now, I'm going to spend some time just going into one concept here. One of the first things that you get to learn as we go into Pathway 5 and the science of preparation, we talk about the pathway of big ticket thinking. Many of you, you're thinking too small, and that's why you're going to be manipulated. This program will really help you to understand the pathway to big ticket thinking. Now, what exactly are you likely to learn on this platform? One, you will learn about capital markets. The pathway to big ticket thinking will help you to understand capital markets. The pathway to big ticket thinking will help you to understand how to access capital markets. The pathway to big ticket thinking will help you to understand how to leverage financial instruments. The pathway to big ticket thinking will also help you to understand how to mitigate capital. And I just want to talk a little bit about it so it's not abstract. When we talk about capital markets, we're talking about financial instruments, and you need to know it. You know, the great book says that man shall perish because of lack of knowledge. And you are struggling financially because you don't have enough knowledge about financial instruments. And our role with the Pathway 5 is to really help you to understand financial instrument. So you're in that position of strength to not just some degree of ownership over your life and mastery over your life and position yourself for greatness. So Capital instrument means that you're taking the time to understand how debt instruments work. There are many persons that wants to buy a house and just don't know the first step to take to position yourself to buy a house. They don't understand debt instruments and how debt instrument works. And even if you get access to debt instruments, you still don't understand how it works. So you are manipulated by another system. There are many persons who would have acquired their first home or attempting to acquire their first home, but then you don't understand anything about amortization schedule. What is the amortization schedule, and how your understanding of the amortization schedule can position you to save hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars on the debt that you're going to create to acquire that piece of asset. So the pathway to big ticket thinking is going to help you to understand money and how money works and how to work it to your advantage. So you don't have to go paycheck to paycheck and you don't have to struggle financially and be vulnerable to manipulation, to the puppet master. So these are just some of the things that you will learn when you are exposed to the Science of Success University and Pathway 5. This is one of the programs that you're going to be introduced to. You will be introduced to financial instruments. What is debt instrument and how it works? What is credit instruments and how it works? And let's talk a little bit about credit instrument because I'm doing a high level overview here. You know how it feels to have financial independence? That you don't have to worry how much you're spending and where the next paycheck is going to come from, how you're going to get the food on the table. This program is going to set you up to accomplish that. And one of the things that I want to talk about in terms of credit is that you can set yourself up to access credit line depending on where you are in the world at 0% APR. But if you don't know it, you can't position yourself to access it. And if you don't know or have a reason to access it, you don't have an opportunity to leverage it to position yourself to come into financial greatness. But let me pause a little bit and talk a little bit about the 0% APR credit financing. There are institutions that we are working with. We have partners in business that will help you to access 50,000 US dollars, 100,000 US dollars, 200,000 US dollars. Guess what? At 0% APR for 6 months and 12 months and 18 months or 24 months. So guess what? For this period of time, you don't have to pay any interest back on the capital. Think about the leveraging opportunities that you have here. Now, yes, I said I will swing the conversation into money and how money works because I said that many persons, you are manipulated, you become vulnerable to the puppet master because of money. And because you have a lazy mind, you don't want to help yourself to understand the things that you should understand to bring yourself to that point where you're exercising ownership over your life and mastery over your life. Our role, my role, is to ensure that we provide you with information that can set you up for success. So you don't have to become vulnerable to a puppet master that says, I don't like Gary. Let's take Gary down. You must be able to start to say, wrong is wrong, right is right. Because I'm seeing too many people being hurt in this world because of the puppet master. All right. So there's a lot for us to talk here, but in the interest of time, I want to pause. So let me quickly pathway to big ticket thinking. You will learn about capital markets. You will learn about capital access. You will learn about capital leverage. and capital mitigation. Again, you don't want to take capital unless you know how to leverage it. And you don't want to leverage it into a liability, you want to leverage it into an asset. So all of these are things that you're going to learn. And even when you leverage it, you want to know how to exit your debt portfolio fast and smart enough so as to avoid paying high APR. APR meaning interest rates. So pathway 5 is really going to set you up to understand money, how money works, how to put money to work for you so you can make money when you sleep. Think about this. You become now the puppet master for money because money is going to work for you. Money is bringing money to you. You're making wealth. When you sleep, you make money. You are the puppet master now to money. In fact, the only thing that, you know, should be controlled by the puppet master is money because you as a human being, you're a special breed. So I pause there to now. For now, I want to turn to Master Frank to share his thoughts on self ownership, mastery, leadership, and then I'm going to come straight over to Shavadi. Frank, all to you.
Thanks. Great seeing my colleagues, compatriots, whatever we call ourselves. Good morning, good
You got
morning,
it.
good morning. I want to look basically at the self mastery, self ownership, and self mastery. Not much of a difference because self ownership, uh, this concept asserts that the individuals have sole ownership and control over their bodies, minds, lives. It implies that individuals have the right to make decisions about themselves without external interference, as long as those decisions do not infringe upon the rights of others. So, self ownership is often considered a foundational principle in discussions about individual rights and autonomy. Self mastery refers to the ability to control one's own thoughts, emotions, actions. It involves developing self discipline, resilience, and inner strength to navigate life's challenges effectively. Excuse me, self mastery is about understanding oneself deeply, including one's strengths, weaknesses, what triggers you, patterns of behavior, and then actively work to improve and grow. It often involves practices such as mindfulness, meditation, goal setting, and self reflection. Together, self ownership and self mastery form the basis of personal sovereignty and empowerment. By recognizing our inherent ownership of ourselves and actively cultivating mastery over our thoughts and actions, we can lead more fulfilling and purposeful lives while also respecting the autonomy of others. So, the American Institute for American Research, AIER, writing in their blog, Jeffrey Tucker spoke on what self ownership means and why it matters. He said he's been thinking about the idea of self ownership, which is a concept almost universally assumed to be a foundation for human rights and a civilized life. At the same time, this idea is constantly threatened by political ideologies that presume it not to be true. He looked at in coming up with all this, he looked at the final episode of season 2 of The Americans, where Elizabeth Jennings, a Soviet spy in America during the Cold War, is given a message from her Moscow based handler. And the KGB expect that her teenage daughter, Paige, who believes that her mother is a humble travel agent, will also become a spy. This is her destiny. Of course, the mother profoundly objects. because she explained that she chose this life based on her commitment to communist ideals or ideology. And her daughter also should be permitted to exercise such a choice. So it strikes the mother that even though she's a committed communist, that denying her daughter volition of her life destiny would be inhumane and even ghastly. However, the Moscow handler disagrees. Her message: we don't belong to ourselves, we belong to the world. Of course, the world needs an institution to meditate the meaning of such audacious belongingness. And that is the Communist Party, the vanguard of the dictatorship of the proletariat is the party elite who are chosen by the workers and peasants to lead the way in, ushering a new world without capitalism. All of which is to say that her daughter, now only 15 years old, has no choice about it. She would be trained by a Soviet agent in America, just like her mother. It is up to Elizabeth to facilitate the transition as the child gets older. And that is to say, Paige, the child, must be convinced to make the right choice. And doing the convincing is a test of loyalty and ideological commitment. Of be willing to give up your own child because there's a sense of which nothing is yours. Everything belongs to the world, which is to say, the Soviets. So the core moral issue here in the Americans is a seemingly endless show with fully 6 seasons, a total of nearly 75 hours of watching. In what seen so far, the brutal assassinations, the betrayals, the struggles of loyalty, the political machinations, the drama over the fate of the daughter is the most emotionally gripping. She is being denied the essential idea of self ownership, which is to say that she's born a slave to the communist cause, an ideology, and the state that embodies that cause. It is deeply painful because it gives rise to profound reflection on how much we take self ownership for granted. Communism, in practice, has to deny it. Many other political ideologies share that view. Racial nationalism demands that your biology determines your tribal loyalties. Religious nationalism insists that the belief system structure in which you're born determines your life destiny. Geographic nationalism says your forest loyalties are bound up with citizenship, but at the same time, at the modern age, we've come to believe a different idea. The French historian Ernst Renan explained the contrary position in 1882, and I quote: no one has the right to go through the world fingering people's skulls and taking them by the throat, saying, you are of our blood, you belong to us. And so, too, for familial loyalty, an essential component of the liberal idea is that as a child matures, he or she gains the capacity for making choices over life destiny. Now, this job of a parent as a custodian and creator of the child is to prepare that child to make grown up choices when the time comes. There must be real choices over marriage, what job you want, what should be your living arrangement, which religion you want to choose, and so on. Parents can and do influence, but with maturity comes this essential human right, even when it takes place in defiance of familial and community expectations. I'll go into John Locke and what John Locke says when we come back. Over to you.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. I can see I touch a sweet spot there for you, my friend. I had no idea you would have gone so deep into the subjects that touch a sweet spot. I like it though. And I want to come to Shivani now. Shivani, I think that being ill prepared for business and ill prepared for life is a recipe for disaster. I make mention of this because we see very often many persons may start a business with the attempt to scale it and not be fully prepared. Many persons may want to embrace life and not be fully prepared. So there is no ownership, not full ownership, and there's no mastery that is being uh, demonstrated. I make mention of this because project management, I do believe, help to give the average person perspective on the way forward, perspective on what they want to accomplish, perspective on why, perspective on how. And I would love for you to just give us your view on how project management can really set a person
Mm.
up to be better in control of who they are. Does it begin with setting, goals and knowing how to accomplish it and going after it? Love to have your view, Shabani. And you can chime in any other thing we talk about. God might have touched a sweet spot with you too. Shabani, on to you.
Gary, so I was wondering, right, when you introduced at a point, you were saying that about self mastery and self control, that many persons may not like Shivani. And I was thinking, but why it is, you're talking about me, and you didn't talk about Peter or Frank or Master Frank, but you say
But I
you
include myself
me.
at
But
the
then
end. I include.
afterwards, you include yourself. So I say, all right, I'll let it go. I'll let it go for now. I'll let it go for now.
Okay.
Yeah. It is such a true statement about having self mastery and self control. Understanding self ownership, I should say. So, can project management assist persons to do something like this? I have a little story, right, without giving away too much. I had sent out an email to a lot of persons, and I thought I would have gotten a major response from a lot of people. So I did get from some people, but there were a couple persons that didn't respond to the email. It was like they give kudos, right, and big up, like a big up email, right. My whole so a number of persons that I wanted to big up, and I did get response, but there were certain persons that I thought would have responded didn't do it. I started to think about it more. Why are they not responding to it? Is it that they feel that they cannot craft the email because this email is now going to be seen by lots and lots and lots of persons? Is it that they just don't want to do it because they're not happy with the content of the email? Is it that they're not confident in their ability to actually craft, as I was saying, an email, and they don't know how to say it? Or is it that the person, their clique, then the person that they trust, everybody got cliques and stuff in organization, is not doing it and they're just following along as well? So I started to analyze, why would you not do it? And there were a group of persons, and I started to think even more about, is it that persons need to become more confident in their ability to step away? Because if one person, they're really looking at who is going to do it and then they will follow, right? Because this individual didn't do it, everybody else did not do it in that clique. That's what I noticed. So there was a head of the clique. That's what I determined, right? And that's the person that will influence, as you said. And it is such a true thing. Can these people, or can persons who can't think for themselves, as we see, would they be able to move away from the traditional way of working, which is in the organization, and actually set up businesses? Are they able to do something like this? Because one will say they don't have a sense of self, as you would say, right? They don't have a sense of self. They don't know what they're really about. So I look at it in terms of their ability to think for themselves, the ability to become more confident in your ability, right? To become more confident, that is. Because how then can you, if you can't do this, right, and you want other people, the other person now to help you, then you cannot lead, and then you will not be able to supervise and lead, as what Frank, his topic is all about leadership. So There are so many topics that could come out of self mastery that I have seen, and self ownership of who you are in order to function as business leaders, in order to function as leaders of the pack and leaders of organizations. So it's a true statement. All these different types of learnings and everything that we teach in people, we need to teach people that aspect, how to think for yourself, how to be able to move away from the pack. And project management, I always tell persons, if this is a challenge, and it is a true challenge with a lot of persons, I am seeing it more and more and more. Remember, cultures, backgrounds, all of that contribute to how confident that you will be, right? And your ability to understand yourself and understand, hey, I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I know this is a good email. I want to respond to it. I have the ability to respond. It's okay if Gary, Excellency, or the president or anybody is seen it. It's okay. I have the ability to do it. And so that little conversation there just reminded me of so much and the importance of this. It's a very important topic. And until people understand this really in a lot more detail, you're not going to be able to lead. And you're going to reach into leadership, and it is a skill then that you'll have to develop. And sometimes it might be a little too late. We might say no, it's never too late, but let's be real, time is going, life is going, yeah. And then you will not be able to pivot into, as you say, scaling up your business and going into business as that, because you can't think for yourself. You don't have that ability to do it. So project management, I like to tell persons, can definitely help you think of yourself as a project, and then you have all these different elements to help you now. So you see, if you have challenges, right, if you have challenges in projects, we always have challenges. Now, if you are able to analyze those challenges, you need to think for yourself and lead from the front. Sometimes I think this modern management style, Frank, is messing up a lot of people too, right? Because they say we have to think together and more collaborative and all these great terms. However, it starts, as I keep telling people, it starts with me. Lead from the front first and guide people accordingly, and then everything can come together. So, food for thought, project management. Think of yourself as a project in order to look at self mastery and self control, self ownership, as we say. Thanks, Gary. I'll come back again.
Um, I like what you said, Shivani, independent thinkers. And I want to be put on record as saying that I certainly believe that we do not have a culture of nurturing independent thinkers. That simply means that we have a global epidemic. And the evidence is there. Because of the global epidemic of not creating the environment where you have independent thinkers, people are not exercising control over self, ownership over self, mastery over self. And I want to reach this point, coming closer to the pathway of self actualization, largely because that culture is not there. That's an epidemic. As we look across some of the realities that is taking place in the world right now, when you look at the media, you recognize that one cross section of people, they are flowing in a particular narrative. Although the world can see that the narrative has issues, the United Nations wants to sanction the narrative. And in spite of the fact that the United Nations wants to sanction the narrative, they're saying they're gaslighting you, all right, because they are able to pull a community to be the puppets. I'm going to go deeper into that as time progresses. But let me say what. I think that there is a way in which you can position yourself to become an independent thinker and to master yourself and who you are. And it begins a lot by really recognizing that your weaknesses, where you are driven by emotion, you're driven by hearsay. There's no facts and data to guide the decision making process because you're all emotionally wrapped up, or you are knowingly wrapped up in perpetuating a lie. The pathway to success, oh my, I have jumped into this, but let me just lay some groundwork and then I'm going to come to Peter. The pathway to independent thinking, I'm just going to say this and then I'm going to drop off. I'm going to expand on it when Peter is done, is to put yourself in a position of strength where you're market oriented, you're market sensitive before you become market responsive. People become market responsive before they are market oriented and market sensitive. And that because you're driven by emotion. How to detach yourself from the wrong emotions and use data to inform your decision making process. Um, Peter, I do believe that you are in a very strategic position with the master planning initiative to really help people to see where they are, to see where they want to go, and possibly how to get there with the master plan. How do you see the master plan helping persons with self mastery? Perhaps you can answer that question or you can respond to the conversation that we're having. Would love to hear your view from a theological standpoint.
Yeah, Gary. I'm glad to be here again. Glad to see Shivani. I pause the
Well, you're not glad.
Thanks, Peter.
I,
You're not glad
Thanks,
to
Peter.
see. You're not glad
pause,
to see me and Frank.
I pause that response. Glad to see you two guys. Yeah, but I'm Gary. Yeah, I've been thinking a
Frank,
lot.
you're mute. We hear you.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about even the concepts that we're talking about as it relates to master planning, human growth. Um, because master planning requires that you have, you utilizing the term that you mentioned, having a high level approach, and and Chevrolet mentioned about leading from the front or thinking of self as a project. So you want to be able, if you're going to take master, it's like an architect designing a blueprint and passing it on to a contractor. And the contractor now has that plan that he's able to take, have that bird's eye view of everything, project management, having that entire view of what is necessary, so and even to use your terminology now of puppet master, somebody acting as a puppet master, because now the contractor or the person who has the blueprint, he's acting like a puppet master in the sense that individuals who are carrying out the components of the project, they really do not understand the big picture. They just know that they are here to do the electrician work. Another individual is there to do the plumbing. Other person is there to do these various elements. But within that, I like what Shivani said, that even within that concept, an individual acting as a as an overlord, so to speak. What is the objective? So the question is, what is the objective of each individual working together? And I'm looking now at human growth. So I use that approach of going high, where master planning is concerned, to have that big view of what is it that we're trying to accomplish as human beings, and hence the human growth concept. And I'm wondering, of late, I've been wondering, when I went that high to begin to evaluate, I'm beginning to see something quite questionable, because I begin to wonder about, I think Frank used the word about being civilized. I begin to wonder, when you take a bird's eye view of all of this, I'm looking at us as as humanity and begin to ask ourselves, um, questioning or how civilized we are as a species. And if we're positioning ourselves for success, the more I take this look from this perspective, I realize that we're not really growing after all. After thousands of years on the planet, and to see what we have been doing with the planet, to see what the world has become with so much technological advancement. But as a species, I have to question or civilization. I've got to question how civilized we are as a species. And so within the context of human growth and the development, then we have to be asking some very simple questions. And if we're going to seek after success, then we got to ask ourselves is, what is it really to be human? And what really is the human experience all about? What is it really to be a human being? And how do we measure success within the context of the human experience of being human? And the understanding that we're trying to grasp, because we do understand that there is a complexity when we begin to talk about elements of this. There is a complexity to the issue, because there are so many um, ways by which these questions can be answered, and even to look at ourselves why we need to see ourselves as a project, because the human person is complex, right? But there is a simplicity to it anyhow. But what I do find is that, and we look at that terminology when we're dealing with human growth and development, there's a term that we look at that we call the complexity of human simplicity. And within that, there is a dilemma. There is a dilemma when it comes to self-ownership and self-mastery, because we're realizing that even as we are seeking to be masters of ourselves and owners of ourselves, what we are finding is that becomes the problem, because it is a sense that human beings, in them trying to master ourselves, we have become somewhat rebellious against the very principles that were designed for us to operate as a civilized being. And within that, us being rebels, so to speak, or signing a rebellion against the very laws of nature, the very laws of how we're supposed to work within a community, because each person as seeking his own autonomy, and each person or each systems, as you mentioned, there are these battles within these systems by which there are individuals who want to be puppet master. But within all of that complexity, what we think we need to understand is to break down it, to find out that there is a simplicity to the human experience. But what I'm seeing is that it becomes complex because human beings would rather than seeking out the simplicity of how things work, it is complicated intentionally, because there are persons who do not actually want to call it for what it is, or to understand that we have to really, if we're really going to coexist, there are simple principles that we have to abide by in order for us to be able to live, for us to engage, for us to really take care of our lives as a species. So all the wars. So the point I'm to you know is that all the chaos that we see on the earth, all the chaos that is happening around us, it simply can be solved if we begin to break down to understand that the simplicity of the human complexity, as we call it, is that there are laws. There are laws that governs life. And those laws that are governs life, if we begin to look at them for what they are, then that gives room for each person or for each body, each human groups can coexist, can enjoy. Each person can understand their autonomy. Each person can take their ownership, but it has to be within the context or the parameters that there are laws that we all have to agree upon where we are if we're going to live. So in these situations, it is these situations, Gary, that um, you know, self ownership and self mastery, even to say it that way, it becomes a very thing that is causing us not to position ourselves for success, because we are operating by systems that is not serving us as a species, and more we're proving ourselves as humanity to not be as civilized as we think we are. I would love to go deeper where that is concerned, but I think we're having a big problem, and I tend to say this looking at the world for what it is, and the crisis and the chaos, and it seems to be spiraling out of control. The more we are seeking to advance, is the more things become on a day by day basis, the more we see a heightened hopelessness. So the question is then, how are we going to turn this around? We're going to turn it around when we understand that there are simple laws, not rules that are created by human beings, but laws, basic laws. We came here as blank canvases. So there are systems that life presents to us, that it is in understanding those systems that we're able to attain the kind of freedom that we're looking for, and we all can live and share the planet without destroying ourselves. I hope that's broad, but I hope it lends some kind of an understanding to the question that you.
All right, Peter, thanks for your share. It was definitely broad, and a lot of great points was made there. I want to say that the human species is supposed to be the most intelligent life form on planet Earth. And sometimes I just think that, in recognition of the fact that we are the most intelligent species on Earth, I just feel sometimes we need to have some more compassion, some more love, some more care um, in the atmosphere, where we can demonstrate love and care for each other. It is an essential part of life. And my belief is that um, intelligent people should not necessarily be all about pulling each other down. And sometimes we find that that happens. And just to speak a little bit to a culture of independent thinking, which I started on early on, there's two things that I want to look at. There is what I call being driven by data, and you're allowing your response to things to be based on data, or being driven by emotion. You see, while there is emotional intelligence, being driven by emotion doesn't mean that you're being driven without facts. You have information. That's the reason we call it not just emotion, but emotional intelligence. And I do believe that in today's world, we need an elevated level of emotional intelligence and for people to learn, apply, and master in their lives. And I think this is what emotional intelligence would look like. It's taking data. All right. So you're not setting yourself up to be wrongfully controlled or to be sent down the barrel of the gun, you're taking the time to ensure that you are collecting the right information, you are analyzing the information, you're using the information, and you know how to mitigate the information, not in a destructive way, but in a constructive way. And let me say this, it hurts when we see highly educated people that are going paycheck to paycheck. It hurts when we see highly educated that have big dreams and hopes and aspirations for their loved ones. Single source of income is not adequate enough to position them to do the things that they want to do. Again, lack of information. And this is one of the reasons why we're saying to you that part of our agenda as humanitarian is really to serve humanity. And the way we choose to serve humanity is to help them to understand how project management can make their life better, to help them to understand how leadership can make their life better, to help them to understand how having a master plan can make their life better, and to also help them to understand the significant role that understanding financial intelligence can position them for greatness. And that is why we're introducing to you Pathway 5 that helps you to understand money and how money works and how you can leverage money to work for you. So perhaps you can fulfill your dreams and hopes and aspirations. And this all ties into self ownership. Self ownership is you making a conscious decision that I will be actively involved in molding and shaping my life, and I will be directing it to where I want it to be and to go. That's self ownership. It doesn't mean that you're elevating yourself above Christ. It simply means that on earth, you're taking full responsibility for your actions and inactions. You're taking full responsibility for it. And in taking full responsibility of that, you're putting yourself in a position of strength where you're exercising mastery over your life. And to exercise mastery over your life, it means that you're on a path to self actualize. And you knowingly know this, that you're on a path to self actualize because you are in a position of strength to self determine. You're a beautiful species, the most intelligent species, and our role is us to awaken you to these facts and to do our best to provide the context of information, the kind of information that will help you along the line. I'm going to pause here for now. Time really runs when you're enjoying the conversation. Shabadi, I know you got to run, so let me start with you. Your closing thoughts, and then I'm going to come around to Peter and then Frank. All to you, Shabadi. Closing thoughts.
I am Gary. Yes, time always flying away when we're having a great time, and that's great. So closing thoughts for me, really, how can we become better at self? That's like how I want to always start this statement. How can we become better at self? How can you now, as an individual, break away from the pack and have your own thoughts and make your own decisions? Culture really influences this. Organizations need to do more think tank on this, small little focus groups where you can pair people together. They will always have someone in your organization. So, for example, the same thing that I was saying, persons they were following somebody, right? So my technique was always to see who got the most influence if I want now to influence other persons. And I can work with that person as well. to help to develop other person's sense of self. So definitely this person may, be a very confident individual that people can follow them. So let me try now to see how I can help those other persons as well. So organizations can form little think tanks, get people to start to think about when you use these words, because sometimes some people, they may be in organizations and they don't know what they're doing. They really don't know. They don't know that they don't have a sense of self. They're thinking, well, I'm doing what I have to do and I'm good. That's what some people may be thinking. Unless you see another way of doing something, then you would know. You have to see something. So again, another type of project that can evolve to teach people within the organization is a lot of transformational projects, self-transformational, and how you want persons to grow and to get better. Because yes, if you have everybody with a different way of thinking, do you know how good your organization is going to be and how great your business is? Because everybody not thinking the same way. So you want independent thinkers. You want people to think like this in your organization. But you need to create the environment for this to happen. So project management again, processes and tools, thinking, mindset can definitely help us. Thanks, Gary.
A great point again, Shivani. All that we are saying, guess what? I think the more empowered people that we have in society is the more empowered organization we have, because people cannot give what they don't have. But think about this: you empower people with a sense of self, a sense of purpose, and a strong sense of direction, and they bring that to your organization. Guess what? Guess what? You have heaven made in earth right there. So I love that share, Shabani. Beautiful share. Beautiful. And transformational programs, I certainly recommend it. And I know that, Siobhan, you have a lot of these transformational platforms, and we'll talk about some of them for next week. I know you have a massive program coming up in May to June, so we'll talk about that later on. Peter, can you give me your closing remarks, and then I'm going to come to Frank.
Yeah, Gary. Because the concept, that we're looking on right now as we're talking about the human growth master plan, and as I said a while ago, we are stepping back, because if we're gonna try to have human growth, and if we're trying to create, as I mentioned, a master plan for human growth, then we have to ask the questions. We have to look at the situation. If we're going to try to find solutions, we have to see the situation for what it is, as it is right now. And so this is why we're asking ourselves a question: are we really, as a species, moving towards civilization? Are we really becoming more civilized? And the data, the data shows that we are not. That the closer we are going toward, the future, is the more uncivilized we are as a species. So the question then is, how do we turn things back? How do we, begin to get some semblance of order, whereby the human species, just as you say, we are the most intelligent of all species on the earth, but it doesn't really seem that way based upon the data. Watch your television, just look at the news. We're not really going in that direction. We're going in the direction so much that if things continue the way how it is right now, really, if things continue the way it is right now, then we are a danger to ourselves. We are seeing what is happening. Just look at what is going on in Gaza right now. We're 30. This, I think I heard one report says 30 within just 7 months or so. I heard. I'm just this 30,000 people. Just to think about last year this time and what happened in Ukraine, another couple of thousands. So when we look at this from this perspective, how long can we last? And then when we pour in all the other elements in it, in just within regions. Here in the United States, when you look about what is happening in the area of leadership and politics, where individuals don't basic, very basic functions of what humanity is. We have even lost our ability to describe basic elements of even male or female. We're having problems in those areas. We're asking questions such as if a man can operate in a women's sport. Just basic. Well, we're not really civilized. We are really beginning to turn the clock against ourselves. We are now in real danger for ourselves. Don't see us lasting another 100 years as a species if we continue to go down this trajectory. So what is it that we need to what is it that we need to do? We just have to understand basic things. That life was designed to with a basic uh, laws as I mentioned a while ago, basic law. Life was designed. Life informs us how we're supposed to maintain within life. And if we understood, so education really is to teach us how do we operate within the parameters of what life is. So the answer is research the data. What does the data say? How do we operate as an individual and understanding what the individual is? And there is three concepts to what the individual is. There is the bias, which is the biological. There is the suke, which is the psychological, and the zoe, which is the divine and the spiritual. And each of these has principles by which, if we just research and we understand what these are and we operate within the parameters, then indeed, that is within those parameters, then we will attain the success, the positioning of success that we are so, looking to have on a day by day basis.
Great share, Peter. And I do feel the pain from which you speak from. And what I want to say, we are the most intelligent species on Earth. But guess what? For the majority of us, for the majority of people, they are the diamond in the rough. A diamond is a diamond. The goal is the goal. And what we have to do is to get them out of the rough and get them where they are refined with a strong sense of self, a strong sense of purpose, and a strong sense of direction. I think as humanitarian, we have a responsibility to be compassionate with um, our human species enough to want to educate them on those issues.
Mm.
I think the challenge that we have, Peter, where the dilemma lies, I'm going to come to Frank now, is the fact that we have perhaps the few percentage that is refined, but they're not necessarily refined to act in the best interests of the collective. And there lies the challenge. They are acting in their individual interests, and the individual interests, or they're acting in collective interests that doesn't seem to represent the views of the majority. Uh, but as you know, great points. Frank, all to you, my friend. Master Frank.
I, I will close by saying we need to act on what we believe because the notion of self ownership is bound up with modernity's understanding of what liberty is all about. The idea of slavery, which for 1,000 years was believed to be essential to social order, we now rightly find morally disgusting. No person can presume without consent to possess the right to control the
To
body
own
and
you.
choice of another person, thus denying him or her the volition that lies at the core of what makes us human. And yet, we are terrible practitioners of the idea of self ownership. We have built huge states in almost every country that exists and grow based on denying it. They necessarily must. Any ideology that proposes to support and expand the state implicitly denies it. And that is true whether the ideology is communism, socialism, nationalism, or any other ism that proposed is to submerge individual rights to the higher claims of the political community. They try to inspire us to give up what is ours in the name of living according to higher ideas or ideals and being part of something larger than ourselves, submitting to the demands of the community. Some people want to do that. It should be their choice to do so. It should also be their choice to decline. It's not that we as a human culture reject the idea of self ownership. It is that we do not take it very seriously in our politics. Everyone believes it. No political system practices it. We should. But if we do, prepare for dramatic structural change in the composition of our political communities. We will have to get used to the idea of being free. Thank you.
As Frank, you're taking me back to history there, my friend, and I don't want to go there because we're going to open up another session here today. But we got to do this again because I had no idea that, we would have gone down this path, but I think it's a pretty interesting path as we look at, various shades of self-ownership, various shades of self-mastery, and position yourself for success. I thought we would have gone down the financial road, but of course we went down the historical road, and that's quite okay. I want to thank you guys for uh, stepping out and supporting today's program. I want to begin with Shivani. Shivani, as you know, she is a project management specialist practitioner. She is also a serial entrepreneur, and she's a lecturer at one of the top universities in the Caribbean. Always great to have you come and share, Shabani. We also have Peter. Peter is a theologist by profession, and he's also the brain behind the Human Growth Initiative, which is the Legacy Chronicle Human Growth program. One of his key focus is really helping you to develop your master plan from four different perspectives. And so I think the master plan is vital when you want the best out of life. We also have Frank, and Frank, he is an economist by profession, and he is also a leader. And he's now in the process of writing, well, not writing, publishing his new book. Frank, I want to give you a chance to last words and to tell us a little bit about the book that is about to be published.
Yes, the book was all about self mastery because it's about, there's a bit of everything in it. There's a bit of project. There's a bit about culture, the way an organization would go into another culture and adapt. How you need to adapt. And my experience in this is because when I worked with a medical offshore school, the issue was that they were coming from India with a set culture to Guyana, a different culture. But in all that culture, there was a melting pot of people from Africa, China, the Middle East, and so on. But the leadership or administration did not take cognizance of the fact that there's a mixing bowl. I feel hungry. That's why I'm calling food stuff. Mixing bowl of
Okay.
cultures. And the way we navigate among the culture, we still have to be respectful of each other's culture. That was not seen. And when I talked about it, it was like I was challenging the status quo. But as a leader, you needed to challenge status quo. So eventually, I was fired for incompetence. But
It always happens, Frank. You either fit in or slip out,
yeah,
fit in
eh,
or slip out.
the thing about it, if you either join them in the foolishness, or you cut and run, or they kick you. But at the
But
end of
here
the
the
day,
other part. But here the third part, Frank. The third part is that you can charter your own path. And that's what we're going to do right now.
yeah, you can always
Charter
do that,
your own path. You
right?
don't want to fit in. You don't want to
And that
fit in.
and that is where self mastery, self ownership comes into play, right? We can't be conformed now in this modern world to people's ideology. And of course, that's why I said in the last sentence, we will be thinking of freedom, but are we really free? Right? They got something worse coming than COVID-19. And if we don't stand up and talk no, you can't eat with dinner. Saying that they're
Mhm.
going for breakfast. I'm very hungry,
All right,
but I got to
guys.
run.
That's
Take care.
that's it. Thank God it's Friday.
Oh,
And so I want to wish you guys a beautiful weekend
yeah.
and see you guys tomorrow.